Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. And Stephen's got a really good question for us to debate around today. And it is how to be your authentic self. So what exactly do you mean by authentic self? Start us there, Stephen.
Yeah, well, thanks, Oliver. I mean, it's something that I feel really passionate about. And anyone that knows me or has come into contact with me, I talk about this a lot. It's probably my, on Mastermind, your specialist subject, this is mine. And where it really stems from, for me, Oliver, I strongly believe that so many of us are three people in one. And what I mean by that is there's the person that goes to work. So that's how you are in your work environment. There's a person at home and there's a person with their friends. And I really believe that so many people try to be three people. And being your authentic self is about just that. It's about being you. It's about being you consistently. It's about those things that you only share with potentially friends or family. Why don't you share that with everybody? Because it's been proven so many times that by being your authentic self, people actually gravitate more towards you. And especially in the working environment, I think it improves productivity. I think within a social setting, it allows people to sort of resonate with you a bit more. And I think I really hate this word like, oh, I'm professional in the workplace. What does that even mean? And you know the sad thing, Oliver, and I'll be really honest with you here. I actually believe in my heart that I actually didn't start being myself until I hit my 30s. So I would honestly say that. Obviously I did add my teenage years and, I started work in my teens quite early. But I would say my whole of my 20s, I was trying to be someone that I thought the business I was working for wanted me to be, or my friends wanted me to be, but I actually wasn't being myself. Some of that was around confidence. Some of that was around, not wanting to make mistakes. Some of that was around not wanting to be the fool in the group. Some of that was about, not wanting to feel like I was being bullied because I wasn't, saying the right thing at the right time or wearing the right clothes and all of those things. But being your authentic self is, for me, it's about really being you all the time. That way, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to go, oh, well, I'm going to dumb this down. I'm going to dumb myself down a little bit because, no, it's I really feel passionate about this. It's like I'm going to be me, and if you're not happy with that, that's your problem. That's not my problem. That's your problem. And actually, if you don't want to be associated with me because of that, then that's fine. Not everyone's going to think I'm their cup of tea, and that's okay. But being your authentic self, I think, is so powerful, and that's what I mean by that, Oliver. Does that make sense? And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, no, I do like that. It reminds me of me in my 20s. I think I've talked about this in previous episodes. If not, you'll find out. Where I felt I needed to be a certain way. And because I don't have lots of, bizarrely for a coach, much of natural empathy. It's not something that just sort of rises straight to the surface. I was never too worried about people's feelings when I was younger. So I thought I just needed to be the powerhouse, comes in, get stuff done, tell people what to do, be in charge. And as a result, rose quite quickly through the various ranks to a degree. But I had no comprehension of what that meant to other people, and also kind of lost myself a little bit. So that idea of being your authentic self is one thing, but also forgetting what you were like. And it took a fairly momentous occasion in my life, which I won't bore people with now, where I just got this massive wake-up call as to how far away or far removed I'd become from my actual self when this day came. And it was like a specific day or week that happened. And I was like, wow, this is just not me. I mean, there's so many things I'm not doing or am doing, and that is not me. I'm not happy with them. And how the thing that I find really interesting as well, ask people to think about this within themselves, is how many times that can probably happen to us because of tolerance. So I talk a lot about, you talk about, being your authentic self, and I talk about what we tolerate. There are kind of like two of our major things. So that's the one that I'm always trumpeting. What are you tolerating? And the problem is, if you tolerate more and more and more, you move potentially so much further away, in this case, from your authentic self, that you don't even realize when it's happened. And when this happened to me, it was a relationship breakdown, and 10 years of my life invested in that. And I had come from here to here, and I did not recognize the person who suddenly was then speaking to people, and they're, oh, yeah, no, we saw that in you about 6-7 years. And I go, well, why didn't you say anything? Because you'd have ripped our effing heads off, if we'd have criticised X and criticised Y. But because I tolerated this bad behaviour, and then again this bad behaviour, and this bad behaviour, and this bad behaviour, it became okay. And I suddenly was able to just put up with more and more and more. And we had something similar in the family not that long ago. My grandfather passed away last year, sadly, but he before that had a good struggle with dementia. So he was living with dementia, and again he was living with us in an annex, and we put up with so much more than we were actually able to. We were probably not doing as good a job for him as we could have been, and we should have been getting him more help, because we were trying to protect him, and we said we'd always look after you, we wouldn't put you in a home, and all these sorts of things. And the thing that made us realise how far we'd gone on the tolerating was there was a door that accessed the annex to the house, which we allowed him to have access to, and it made a specific noise where it went ka-dunk, ka-dunk when it got opened. And for some reason, I don't know what it was, but the first day that he wasn't there, that he'd had to go into care in the end, somebody went through that door while my wife weren't there. It's probably my daughter, and we heard the noise, and we both just like and we looked at each other straight away, because we knew he wasn't there, and we suddenly realised, oh my God, that sound is the trigger for so much stress in our lives, because we were trying to tolerate and handle a situation that we weren't equipped to do. So it's also, I like the way that takes you. I mean, there's one thing being your authentic self, and absolutely, but the risk of not doing that as well is how far removed from your actual natural innate self you can blooming well become. And therefore, what are you tolerating now? And I just love people to think, first of all, are you being authentically you? And what are you tolerating right now? Because I bet everyone listening, I mean literally mean everyone listening, is tolerating something that they needn't to be, or that they shouldn't be, or that their authentic self wouldn't allow them to do. So that's where that landed with me. In fact, it set me quite deep, that one, didn't it? But
I'm so happy, Oliver, that it did, because, that's what this is about for us. That's why we're doing this and sharing. And, I would say this area is so sensitive. It really is, because there'll be people listening to that out there saying, I can't be my authentic self in the workplace because the culture that we have in that workplace won't allow me to be. And what I would say to those people listening is, consider whether you're working for the right organization, because if you can't be who you need to be, and your organization is not inclusive enough, that you can't be who you need to be. Let's think about that for a moment. You can't be who you need to be for yourself. There's a problem. And I strongly believe that when we talk about culture and when we talk about environments, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, because if you're not allowed to, if you seriously believe that you're not being yourself because of the environment that you work in, then that is one, very, very sad. And like Oliver said, that means that you're tolerating something that actually we're now saying to you, it's not right. So if you're feeling that way, and this again triggers, a lot of the conversation that me and Oliver have shared with you will have triggers. And I will implore you all again, if it triggers something, go and have that conversation, go and talk about it. Because if you're not being true to yourself, if you're not being the true you, then you're not really helping the people around you, because you're not being you. Remember what I opened with saying, by being your authentic self, you can help so many other people. By not being your authentic self, you're not allowing people to get to really know you. You're not really building relationships. You can't really collaborate. You can't have real partnerships if you're not being yourself. And I do think that's where it hits hard with me, and it's why I talk about it. I probably talk about this subject matter most days, and it's something that really, for the mentoring, for the coaching that I do, it's the thing that I spend the most time talking to people about, because I believe by being your authentic self, you actually improve your own mental health. I think in many cases you can improve your own physical health. And I think in most cases, you can then help people around you. And again, I think in most cases, when you think about the family unit and those deep, meaningful feelings and conversations that you have, even with your partner sometimes, if you're not being your authentic self with your partner, how the hell are they supposed to really connect with you? How is that relationship supposed to really blossom if you're hiding part of yourself? Oh, I really like going walking, but because you don't like going walking, we're not going to go walking. So that means you're not being your authentic self because you're stopping yourself from doing something that you really like. Go and walk on your own, but don't stop yourself from being authentic and do something that you really like. What do you think about that, Oliver?
Yeah, no, lots to resonate with there, really, when you think about it. Because, again, if you're in a situation where you do like walking and the other person's not keen on it, you probably need to think about that because there's some signals being sent there. Because, part of relationships and partnerships is all about making sacrifices, in effect, as the way I see it, because you ultimately... you have strong feelings for that person, whether it be in a romantic relationship or a good friend circle, or even in business, you saw that it was right to work with this person. So sacrifices to different levels have to be made. And if it's one-sided, then there's some alarm bells that need to be sounding there in yourself, because again, it's that tolerance. And it's like I say, I'm not saying that people will be tolerating a lot. Some people will be tolerating more than others, but I guarantee you are at some level tolerating something. And you just need to be in touch with that before you get lost. So there won't be people necessarily listening to this who are really traumatic situations necessarily. They may well be, but there might be people who could be heading that way right now if they're not thinking about it and listening, because you've talked about it in a business environment, which I absolutely agree. But it's the same. I see it all time and time again in so-called loose term friend. I'm not such a big fan of the word, because there's people in friend circles who are not being themselves. And I see it, because I come across people, and the only thing that I can guarantee what people get from me is they get me all the time. And sometimes that's a bit much for people, but at least they know where they stand. I love that phraseology. At least you know where you stand with somebody who's being authentic. And I see people all the time. It's like, well, that isn't how you are when you're with me on your own. Or, if we're, playing, I play a lot of golf, and I can see that people are different from one group to the next. And it's like, what's that all about? What is it? Is it about fitting in? I don't know. It's always confused me. But I'm very much, I'm like you. We're kind of in the minority because you get pre-programmed into being a certain way. And you talked about it in the workplace as a final thought. If you're tolerating stuff, then everybody else around you is. And it might just take one person to completely change that. Yes, of course, it might be a risk that you take because it may go down like a lead balloon. But if you actually just start showing up as yourself, it might just free up other people around you to just come together and say, yeah, actually, this isn't cool. Or no, we don't agree with that. Or no, actually, what they said is, you don't want to be the spokesperson for everybody, because that is a lonely place. But at the same time, you just never know what that might trigger, because if you're in a position where you're just so unhappy with what you're tolerating, you need to go, don't you? You need to move on. But you have one other option, which is to try and influence as quickly as you possibly can a change, because the leadership of that company might well embrace it. They just might be completely oblivious to it. That's the thing that I find. I don't do so much work with businesses these days. It's more one-on-one stuff. But where I have done it is the absolute lack of awareness that is staggering at a senior level. So by bringing it to their attention, you just never know what that might trigger in them. So don't give up on that, is what I would say.
No, you're absolutely right, Oliver, and you've just triggered something in me actually with what you've just said. And a slight plug here: I'm a board director of the Nest, and those of you that live locally here in Norfolk that don't know where the Nest is, it's by the airport, and it's an amazing facility that supports vulnerable adults and children in the community and allows people to go and do sport and do other things in a safe environment. So go and check it out. But one of the reasons why I'm board director there is because I can be me. I can be Stephen Barmer Walters in that environment and support them. I don't need to go and put on a suit. I don't need to talk a certain way. I can just be who I am. And we talked about confidence on previous podcasts. And what I would say about confidence is a sure confidence breaker is you trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
Because what happens is it's not natural. So what actually happens is you're constantly having to think all the time about what you're going to say or about what you're going to do. So being your authentic self, I believe, really helps you to be more confident, because actually you're being the real you. So you haven't got to think about it. It just comes, naturally. And I know some people will say, that's fine, but sometimes I say the wrong thing. Or sometimes, I say something and it comes out wrong. If those people don't forgive you for that, then you're not around the right people anyway. You have to be yourself first and foremost, because by being yourself, people will naturally gravitate more towards you. People will listen more towards you. And ultimately as well, in my career, I think because I've been myself, especially in the last 22 years, I think if I have made a mistake, people have forgiven me. Or if I have made a mistake, people have given me concessions because they've gone, you know what, he's always been true to himself and we totally know where he's coming from. He might not always use the right words, or he might get words a bit jumbled up because I'm dyslexic, so that sometimes happens. But they forgive you because you're being your natural self.
Mm. Yeah, no, that resonates as well. And it's, again, I think we've probably been mean to social media a few times already, and that's not really my intention, because there is some good out of it. But again, it's another environment where it's just, for me, made things a lot worse, because you're seeing how people are, and you try to be that person, because you admire them. Maybe you try it for good reasons, but it just isn't you. So if I could just implore you to do one thing, is stop trying to be other people. Now, that may sound difficult, but it isn't as hard as you think it is, because if you just were able to sit down and have a word with yourself about what you believe in, your values, your morals and so forth, and just when something goes against what you believe in, positively challenge. You don't have to be a negative, person and just suddenly have a glass half empty approach to everything. You can still challenge positively. And you'll be surprised, if you're in the right place and it's just going in the slightly wrong direction, then people will listen. But also, no matter how good your conditions are in terms of pay and salary and so forth, what you get to do every single day is going to have a massive impact on you. And it might be better to make a sideways move or even a backward step now to move forward again. So I just want to reassure people, lots of people have to take backward steps to move forward as well as sideways ones. So if you're looking there thinking, I just can't, this is just too good an opportunity. Is it? Is it really? Because it's not all about money. Money's important. I'm not going to pretend that cash and money and possessions aren't important. I don't like it when I see people talking about money isn't important. We live in a capitalist country. It is. And it's even more important right now with where things are. But it is not the be all and end all. And you know what? You will be okay. You will be okay if you make that switch. So, I hope that resonates with people. And as always, Stephen and I are always happy to chat. There's a community building around this as well, so there's people in here that you can potentially speak to as well. This will be on so many different platforms that you can certainly reach out and get the conversation going, because that's what we want, isn't it? We want people to just start hearing stuff, thinking about it, changing how they act based on the way that they change the way they think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. This whole platform for us and what we're doing is to get the conversation going and get people talking and allow our conversation to resonate with people, that they actually start to do something. Another corny saying, but if you always do what you've always done, then the outcome will be the same. And a lot of people listening to this, where things have resonated, it might actually be that you've got to make some big decisions over the next weeks, months, or years because of what we've triggered in you. And that's what I'm about. I want people to take something away from our discussions, and more importantly, I want you to take something away and do something with what you've taken away, because I do believe that the only way sometimes to move forward is to do something differently. Do something differently in your life to actually move forward. So likewise, what Oliver said, we're about building a community. We want people to resonate with what we're saying. More importantly, we want people to benefit from some of these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. This is all about, we're in this gig. We did an episode on this earlier about why we're into coaching. And one of the things is we just want to help people. You know, there's a million other things we could be doing with our time, but this is just so much more fun. You know, we enjoy chatting, so it's not like it's a hardship anyway. But the fact is, we just want to help people, and you know, I'd like to know I'm helping people as well. You know, it's great that people do it silently in the background, but I'd love to know that we're a part of that journey as well, because it will reinforce that we're getting it right. We're pretty confident about what we do, but the more we hear about it, the more we know that we are pointing people in the right direction, that we are literally helping people, then we can do more of it. Equally, if we need to tweak it, we can tweak it. So, as always, we're looking for feedback, comments, and so forth. But I think that brings the episode to a pretty good end from my part. Anything you want to add, Stephen, before we end the record?
No, I think we've covered it all, Oliver. And, you know, again, like we've always said, you know, if this conversation has triggered something in you, reach out and have a conversation.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thanks for listening, guys.